Look, I opened this jar of rotten baby food, and well, a butterfly came out.
This is a
Aha.
3D print. This is as impo if this were stone, which is what it's a copy of, it would be as impossible to recreate it as the pyramids.
Welcome to the Comedians in Elevators podcast. I've got my guest, David Stig Hansen. David, say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is David Stig Hansen. That's my middle name. People think it's a nickname, and you can call me Stig since you know so many Davids. I'm from California. I'm pretty old now, almost 60. Wow, how did it all happen? But I spent 25 years in Taiwan, so before I went there, I learned Chinese. I speak Spanish, but now my Spanish could improve. So I'm a polymath. I do everything. And today I'm out there fixing the living room. Yesterday I was working on someone's deck, getting paid, and other stuff that doesn't get me paid. I have a YouTube channel. I believe that Atlantis existed in Morocco, in the Atlas Mountains, and Mauritania, where I went 3 times to visit. It could go on and on.
Yeah, that's its own rabbit hole. So, well, should we get started?
Sure, sure.
All right. Listen, to my regular listeners, I know you don't like when at the beginning of these conversations I ask you to subscribe. None of us like it. I don't like saying it. I don't like it being in here. But it's frustrating. You know what else is frustrating? It's also frustrating when I look in the back end of the YouTube channel and I see the 56% of you that watch frequently haven't yet subscribed. And I know this because I see it in the comments section. You say things like, I didn't know I didn't subscribe. And that's actually what fuels the show. Basically, it's like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask all the time, because it enables us to build and build and build. And we're going for the long term here. Hit the subscribe button and we'll continue to build this show for you. That's my promise. Thank you to all you guys that do subscribe. It means the world to me. So the whole point of the podcast is to compare and contrast the comic versus the comedian. So I define the comic as any person telling funny jokes versus the comedian who's a funny person telling any jokes. So David, would you agree that you start as a comic and evolve into a comedian?
It's a hard thing to agree with as an English teacher, and I did focus on in Taiwan. Everything that I taught was always English focused. To really go over comparisons over words like that is yet part of my background, but also quite annoying. It's hard for me to say comic and comedian is a different thing, and that's where I heard in the. I've listened to a couple of previous interviews, so I knew this question. And, I had a hard time. I'd like to, can I ask you questions here?
Of course.
So, how can you differentiate the two? A comic is somebody who's telling jokes. Well, that sounds like something you can do off the stage. Are you focusing on stage only? Because it seems like there's a, go on.
Yeah, so basically doing stand up, a lot of the promoters and club owners would like to be like your performance to be very predictable for them, not what you're going to say, but how you're going to say it. And so that's where I got the definition from. Is the difference between the comic versus the comedian. It's two sides of the same coin. They want to know: are you just going to tell jokes, or are you gonna be a character? That's the basic
Okay,
component.
so a comic is telling jokes, but a comedian is a character.
Right. And so when you're doing stand up, hopefully you're telling jokes, but are you doing it just as a regular person, we could say, or are you doing it in character? And if you're
Right.
doing it in character, you actually may not be that funny. So it's a double-edged sword.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think about that because I'm looking at re-entering the I've done stand-up comedy before, and I'm
Hmm.
I'm looking at re-entering the career. I think you may know. Um, so
Absolutely.
anyways, in that term, I also think that the comic is but okay, so now you're making the comic look better than the comedian. The professional is a comedian. I say stand-up comic. I never say stand-up comedian. Although living in Taiwan, they don't know the difference. So it depends on the culture as well. Taiwan, when I take, okay, um, I share a lot of video in my classes, and I haven't been in Taiwan in a few years now, so it's been about 5 years. So I did it, and I'm prepared to do it again. I used a lot of Bill Burr. I used a lot of Amy Schumer and to teach my students about humor. And I asked them, what is their job title? I just so curious what you think. No, they speak Chinese, so they are Chinese people in Taiwan. This isn't Thailand, and humor is quite different there. For example, when you watch the variety shows, they use a lot of sound effects, and they're up there standing up, and there's a lot of sound effects going off that are very triggering and irritating for me. I
Right.
mean,
But isn't
but
that
wait, let
so?
me
Would
just
you
finish one more thing. What's the job
absolutely?
title? I asked my students, and they said, "Oh, it's a talk show host." Bill Burr standing up there with a microphone. He's a talk show host. I said, "No, the talk show host is over there sitting at the desk." Okay, I interrupted you. Go on. What were you going to
No,
say?
no. I was just going to say that there's other components. You know, we're talking about humor kind of in a more abstract sense, right? So if we're going to take it to the Far East, and you're talking about these sounds, well, I'm sure you would agree that a major component of humor is surprise, right? That's the emotion that you're actually going for is surprise,
Hmm.
and sound effects and cultural change differences. As long as you're hitting that shock, well, surprise emotion, you're succeeding. Would you agree?
Uh, I don't think it's equivalent. I mean, for me, it didn't interpret as surprising. It was annoying, and it was. See, the problem was is yes, the language was in Chinese, so I was busy trying to understand the Chinese, make sure I could understand the joke. It's a different. They're not telling any sarcastic humor there, so the idea that you've got to have that supportive boy, boy, it's nonstop, so it wasn't surprising anymore with that example.
I
Um,
would I would think that
I
that
think
is
that yes,
sarcastic.
you can sarcasm.
Yeah, audio sarcasm. Yeah,
I actually say again,
audio sarcasm, and that actually these sounds are sarcastic. It's in a different
absurd,
way.
absurd. I did a lecture on sarcasm with Chandler from the Friends show, who passed away. Obviously, he was the king of sarcasm. Everything he said in that show was a car sarcastic statement, and they still didn't care. Sarcasm and irony is similar. I wouldn't call absurd noises sarcastic or ironic. I mean, if you want to get detailed, you can always say that sound effect didn't really work, so therefore it was ironic. But I think it's. I just want to say it's just as bad
Beep,
as
beep,
when
beep,
people
beep,
say
beep.
ha 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 after they say something
Right.
or
Yeah.
LOL, LOL, and you're not
Exactly. Yeah.
LOLing. You're not.
Well,
Now you can see the bitterness in me.
well, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Wouldn't,
the
but isn't
anger.
that what they're doing by making those sound effects? Is that's giving you the cue to that this is the moment of surprise, which they failed, but they're identifying that moment.
For them, it's maybe I can laugh. It's actually more Pavlov's dog.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's telling you laugh now, laugh now, laugh now.
Exactly.
I don't like that. I don't like
No,
that.
it's pretty unsophisticated, but it's technically still humor, right? All right,
There,
let's
there
let's go
are
with the next.
Yeah,
Let's
sure.
go with
And
the
I'll
next
just
one.
say there are foreign stand-up comics in Taiwan, and they do get people to laugh in the audience. So I'm not saying it's impossible. You just have to have that element of surprise. Please continue.
Absolutely. All right, punching up versus punching down. So where do
Okay, you're gonna.
comics?
Oh, I'm so ashamed. Because I heard it in both examples I listened to, and I still don't get
You
I
don't
don't
get it? I
get
don't
it.
know. Okay,
I
okay. Well,
mean,
let's.
I think what punching up is better from what I understand, but let's define it.
Well, okay. So I mean, I'm not going to define it with the question. Punching up, argue. Well, okay. Let me just ask the question. So, the idea is where does a comic versus a comedian stand on the idea of punching up versus punching down? Okay. So I'll put it in some historical context. So did a jealous medieval prince become the first comedian by killing the court jester?
Wouldn't that sounds like a logic question. The gesture was the first comedian, was he not? I think that's the answer is no.
Okay, because he was already, it already existed. So it's
He's a
part of the
murderer.
argument is
Sorry, I got a scratchy nose tip. It sounds like I'm not picking. But say it one more time. Does the prince, the jealous prince, become a you said comedian by killing the court jester?
Right.
Now
So now,
now we're juggling comic or comedian. I mean, is that
exactly.
still in that's still part of it?
Now, arguably, they didn't even have the concept of and comedian back then, right? So you have to look at it from their perspective, but with these new terms. So yeah, it's a little bit of a complicated idea. You could say that this is sarcastic and ironic on top of it, right? Now the question
Well,
is actually, how would you answer it from the perspective of punching up versus punching down? Was the prince punching down? Or was he punching up?
I think
Because
that
technically,
sounds like a punch down. Yeah, I think it's punching down. Oh, wait, but by the way, he seems like he was actually the first and ultimate heckler by killing the court jester. I mean, see the jealous. So what's he jealous of? I don't know the whole picture here, and so I have to take it as you give it to me. The gesture created this. I mean, I have a lot of as a life. I've been told I'm a funny guy. You know, I've been told I'm a funny guy, and
you're a
it's gotten me
comedian.
into trouble.
You're a comedian more than a comic so far.
Well, that sounds good. I like
Yeah,
being
but it's
having a
actually a perfect.
character. But
Yeah,
here's
you're a
the
funny
thing. I want to
person.
go on stage. I want to do an audition I've been told about, and I might want to change it and stop smiling and turn into this guy.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna, yeah, you could definitely do that. I'm not sure what that guy is, but
I
yeah,
prefer to keep the
absolutely.
smile. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's
no, that
uh let's
100% the way to
rehash.
do it. Let's rehash exactly. So, all right,
So
let's rehash.
let's go over it
So,
one more time, and I'm going to give you my answer. He's punching down, meaning you're not making things better. Punching up is look. I think Kill Tony knows how to punch up with his responses. He seems
yeah.
to he seems to grab onto a small detail about this person on his stage that already forgotten, and then he uses it in his response to respond to something they're saying 10 minutes later, and he knocks it out of the park every time. I think that's punching up.
Okay. I think it's great. That's how what you should do. I don't know if it's punching up or punching down, but it's a critical component because everyone heard it, but they forgot. But Tony didn't, and he brings it up at
He
the.
filed it away and he put it in his
It's
pocket and
and
kept it.
that's right. That's the key. That's the gold right there. So if you can write write jokes that way, especially with a story arc, then you will be technically funny. Now your delivery is what comes in, right? All right. Very important question. Advertising and self promotion. So, who advertises themselves more? The comic, the comedian, or the magician? You know that place where you're not conscious and you're not sleeping either? That's your power bill to the electric company. Right here. I want us to be here with free energy, where the Wardenclyffe Tower meets the Eiffel Tower. But that's not where we are. We are here where you've got the utility and you've got residential solar. Between these two, we know which one saves you money. This is where we can go in the meantime. But this is where I want us to be now, and this can be done now. So let me deputize you to represent DOSE, Department of Solar Efficiency, and let's get on the podcast and get the message out today. See you soon.
Hmm. You know, these are riddles where I still need to understand the comic and the comedian better. Okay, did we say that he would? I say that the court jester did not make the prince. He didn't take his job.
Well,
Now
David,
we're
let me
doing.
put it this way. The way what I'm seeing right now is you're a comedian, right? You haven't told a joke yet, so you're not a comic, right? So
Ah,
I would say you're a comedian right now. Like we're witnessing a comedian perform, but not a comic.
thank you. Although, you know, out of context, people, if I'm trying to do my other work, I'm trying to be the same personality. It's not accepted as well. Sometimes, especially in Asia, just people, even just the other day, I something happened. Did I tell you? Somebody was taking a free object and they said that they liked other objects. So I said, "Oh, I have some of those. Just follow me in my car." And they were like, "No, no, no, I'm leaving." but I have what you just said you like. Going back to the advertising and what was the
Self-image.
other? I have a master's in business, and I definitely love marketing. You talked about advertising and marketing done
Uh-huh.
by a comic, a comedian, a magician. I think I'm trying to create a brand. If I were to take what you're seeing here and get into that comic stand-up career, I'd say I'm creating a brand. Just like the last comedian on Kill Tony does this every time he walks out onto the stage. You know who I'm talking about? Did you watch it
I,
yesterday?
I don't, but yeah, you want to have a grand entry every time you get on stage.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I can't imagine what mine would be. Like,
It'll happen
I mean,
automatically.
how about
Like,
this one? How about this one? How about this one?
oh boy.
That's so much better. It feels great. No, I don't see that as my entry thing.
I think
It would have to be something like maybe this or something stupid, something easy.
it'll happen on its own. It'll happen on its own. For example, so
Probably this. Make sure my collar's up and in the top button. Go
really,
ahead.
I would go with the dance move, honestly, because you're walking. So you could do like a walking dance. Yeah, because you're actually going to be walking on to the stage. So that would be one thing to
I'm not
do.
going to do the Donald Trump.
Right.
Okay, so answering your question, just because I hate it, I got ADHD, so I always want to. And by the way, thank you for inviting me on this interview. I
Absolutely.
have been doing a lot of presentations, and I've been looking forward to an interview such as this, where I'm just asked questions, and I don't have to share my desktop and show you pictures. Although I can show you this. This is a
Aha.
3D print. This is as impo if this were stone, which is what it's a copy of, it would be as impossible to recreate it as the pyramids. But the magician, I think, is the one that's doing the advertising and marketing because he's taking something and making it out of nothing in a way. The comedian is doing more branding. The comic is just doing an MC job, telling jokes.
Okay, now that's a good point. Now, technically, the MC is its own position, and it could be both a comic or a comedian. So there is that third component to it. So
Sure.
let me define the kind of the stand up. I haven't really done this in the past, but this is not my definition, but it's a very popular one, and it's the
I learned by
idea,
example.
right? It's the idea that in stand up, in with all the audience, is that you're having an intimate and spontaneous conversation with a lunatic. That's what stand up is, right?
Who's
And
having the
so
conversation? Who's the lunatic? I mean, the
you're,
audience is having conversation with the stand-up.
well, yes, it is a conversation, but it presents as a monologue, but it's actually a dialogue.
Yeah, it's
So
a dialogue.
everything
Yes.
it is, but it doesn't actually present as a dialogue. I mean, you're functionally just a monologue. Most if you're just doing performance, set
Johnny
material.
Carson gave a monologue at the beginning of every show, right? A
He
monologue.
did.
That's what they
Yeah.
called it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
I would go, that's more of a comic, when you're actually strictly doing it. But the idea was Johnny Carson a lunatic?
I never really saw it this way. He's a translator, an interpreter of lunatic events.
Right.
Um, I
Right.
don't
So
really
there's
see. I mean, there are some people up there with a microphone that are lunatics, but not
so
Johnny
that
Carson.
exactly right. So the idea is that with stand up, that's what is actually happening is you're witnessing or participating in a spontaneous and intimate conversation with a lunatic. And so because of that, we're in the elevator. And where else can you have a spontaneous and intimate conversation other than locked in an elevator?
Um, Taxi driver, taxi, like
Sure.
car, Uber or whatever, maybe a bus, maybe other forms of transportation, like a bus, train, airplane. But the elevator, that's a very intimate, isn't it? And you don't know who's going to be sitting next to you. I mean, you don't know who's going to be standing next to you or when they're going to get on, when they're going to get off. And of course, in business, you know what the elevator speech is called, right? If you've heard of that before, it's just like you know what I'm talking about.
I mean,
You
elevator pitch.
Oh, the elevator pitch. Thank you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I meant. I didn't mean to say speech. Same thing. And the elevator pitch definitely pushed in our face the whole. I didn't just go to business school as a master's. I got my bachelor's in it as well. And then even in junior college, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't go to any school ever. especially knowing now that the smartphone can be your instantaneous classroom. So
Right. I
did I
mean,
answer that question? It's a go
yeah,
on.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you did. Okay. David, are you ready to enter the multiverse?
Entering the multiverse. Let's do it.
Okay. Board game Zoomcast, play versus performance. So if comedy were a board game Zoomcast, are you competing as the colorist, adding tone, mood, and shading, or the Foley artist, building punchlines with soundscapes and timing?
It's a magical question you just asked, but I think I'm just going to grab onto the audio and the timing. And what was the middle word?
Audio and timing. So,
The
well, so
second one, but I forgot already all the choices. But the first one was
the
graphic,
colorist,
color, colorist. Yeah, you're talking about. No, I think that there's who's doing this again? Who's
you are. This is your character. You have to choose what you're the character that you're going to be. Are you going to be the Foley artist or the colorist?
you're making me think like obviously I like bright colors and I wear this to block blue lights, I guess, or just because I don't like the way my head looks without anything. Where's my hat? Oh yeah, here it is. I could be wearing my hat.
There you
And
go.
this obviously it changes things, doesn't it? No, I like my bald head too. So um I think it's important to have a little of both. It's kind of, I've been a graphic artist my whole life. As a polymath, you usually do a job where you're being creative using technology. Like I was in the sign business. Um, I didn't stay in that business. When I went to Taiwan, I stopped doing that type of, but I paid attention to it and graphic, like, just like it's important. That's why we have this research this research question makes you decide between two, but I believe that it's a combination of both. But if I have to lean towards one side, it's more audio, especially the word timing. What was the question again? What were the words?
So let me put it. There's a follow up. So does comedy work better when it's painted vividly or when it's orchestrated sonically?
Is that the follow-up question? Because it does sound like the first question, but reworded.
Yes, it
um
is.
I think if you're watching a stand-up comic, it's got to be vivid colors, in my opinion. But there's still an audio element that you can't ignore. So it's so much both, in my opinion. If I had to choose still, I would go with the timing and the audio. I like to listen to stand-ups. I don't always, when I'm listening, I watch a lot. And when it's
And when you're
on, I
watching, you
sometimes
listen a lot?
I listen rather than watch the screen.
Okay.
So sometimes actually not watching the screen can help you absorb the material better.
Yes, if it's in that format, right? If it's a colorist visual, if you're not watching,
It
it's
might
not gonna.
distract you. It might distract you. I think of Carrot Top when you say that. Listening to
That's
Carrot Top makes you feel like he's an intelligent person, but when you watch Carrot Top, you think he's doing slapstick, and you might like get triggered because I think of the Taiwan performances and how triggered I was then, and I'll be like, I don't want to watch Carrot Top. Same thing with the I no offense to Diddy, but she chose Bill Hicks. Come on. Bill Hicks like died 30 years ago. Died 30 years ago. And so unless you believe he's Alex what's his name? That's
uh,
Alex
Jones.
Alex Jones, yes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, okay, so some people think that Bill Hicks became Alex Jones, but it's technically impossible. Norm Macdonald is another comedian that just passed away in 2021, and it was right when I came back from Taiwan, and it was kind of a transition because before I didn't like him. I didn't even really like what he did back on Saturday Night Live. But after he passed away, we got more and more compilation videos of his work, and I started to fall in love with him. And a lot of it was audio more than watching him. Sure, I had to see like those appearances. Of course, I watched him, and yeah, the expressions on his face definitely a colorist, right? Um, I used to hate the way he acted, and I didn't like his talk shows. They were kind of on the sports side, and I wasn't interested. But when I went back and watched the Norm Macdonald show, the clips with all the other comedians, wow, just a wake up call.
That's good.
So,
That's a good call out to look back in past to see it. All right. Censorship and offense. So does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
mm, well, I'm sorry, the magician that just came up. Was I right about the marketing and branding, or is there no right answer? Because you brought the magician again, as though we're assuming. What did you say about? Can you repeat the question?
Does a comic avoid offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point, like a magician?
Okay, so take away like a magician, and I agree with everything you just said, but then you say like a magician, and I wonder what does the magician see? It sounds like I think I was right about the marketing and advertising answer being the magician, but at the same time, do you do marketing and advertising to make a point or make some money? So, like the magician, maybe if you don't contrast the money to the laughs, but comparably because of the point, maybe. Like if you're
Okay.
gonna see, pardon?
No, yeah, that's you got it. Basically it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think.
And
I think
okay.
we have a delay.
I'm
We have a
sorry,
delay. Okay.
I thought you were about to
Oh,
fill in a blank.
I'm always
And
trying to. I don't want the delay to be overwhelming, but who survives better in a cancel culture environment? The comic, the comedian, the magician, or the mudslinger?
in today's society, the mudslinger is going crazy. Reddit, Twitter, or now X. Um, I had a lot of mud sling at me with my YouTube stuff. In the beginning, it was more Taiwan, living in Taiwan. I did a lot of 20 years in Taiwan videos, and then I got mud sling at me, and those guys seemed like, I was really careful not to offend anybody with my channel, and I didn't survive. And I was the comic at that time because I wasn't doing comedy. I wasn't making any points. I was just showing content of Taiwan. Then when I moved into something happened in 2018 that made me move over and transition to this alternative history content that I've been doing. And I even did some stand-up comedy that I think's on that same channel. Um, maybe not. And yeah, it turned into something different. Now I was fighting trolls. You've got your um, what do you call it in the backs when somebody is heckling you in a room, you've got the trolls that are doing it in the comment sections of your videos. And so mudslingers, they couldn't survive me. I did waste a lot of energy interacting with trolls. However, I always won. And yeah, I would do the same thing on Reddit. And then when AI came, it was even easier because you just tell AI, write something that makes me win. And then you post that and you make sure that those little double dashes are taken out because if you don't, somebody's going to look at it and say, no, that's AI. You just copied and pasted it. So you got to take it and make sure it doesn't look like AI or it's not effective. Like when you say, give me a 9 paragraph response, uh, monotonely tearing this guy's argument apart. And when you post those 9 paragraphs, they definitely know it's AI and it doesn't affect, right? You have to make them think that you just crucified them. So the trolls, they don't last forever. And then you said the monthly and the magicians last forever as long as they're making money. They're a business, it sounds like. So the comic also, um, to answer the question, I kind of have to choose between the comedian and the comic, and I think comedians can last uh, the cancel culture as long as they don't apologize. That's the rule, right? Comedian
Yeah,
can't apologize.
I like
And
it.
of course, yeah, yeah, the magician sometimes they're forced to apologize, and the mudslingers they'll never apologize. They'll never apologize. I think of Trump brought that into fashion into this whole situation where he's definitely slung a lot of mud. I think I read like 3 headlines today. So
Yeah, he's definitely a mudslinger and he's surviving. Okay, here on the Comedians in Elevators podcast, we have a tradition where the previous guest asks a question for the next guest. And the previous guest was Michael Harris. And his question for you, David, is where does comedy meet tragedy?
On the stage, on the stage. What do you mean? You got the mask, you got the two masks, right? They're both together on the stage my whole life. It's uh but how about off the stage in comedy? It's when does tragedy become funny? That's I think we're always searching for, right? When is it too soon, or when is it not too soon to tell the joke about the tragic thing? So when does it meet? It meets on stage for sure because that's where we tell jokes about tragedies. Which came first, the tragedy or the humorous event? I think it would be weird to have a tragedy come from a humorous event, but it's not impossible. But the other
But
way
it's
around, that's what
Mhm.
we're turning on our TVs for. Go ahead. I interrupted you. I want to hear your
No,
response.
absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit it. You hit the right there. That's how we should write jokes. I think that's where you're coming
Okay,
from, right?
let's take a look at what's happening in late night. Now, Jon Stewart was just renewed another year yesterday,
Mhm.
right? And the other guy who used to pretend to be a politician took over Dave Letterman's job, right? I might be wrong because I get them all mixed up now. Late night with David Letterman on CBS went over to not Jon Stewart. Who's the other guy? Colbert. Colbert took over that position, right, on CBS. And Jon Stewart was NBC. That kind of was Conan's old job at the very end until Conan went to TBS. So those two guys both have this element. And then let's not forget ABC, right? Jimmy Kimmel. We've got those are not, I mean, they used to be comedians, right? But now they're comics and then they're mudslingers. All this politics talk has turned off. I think I just heard the best. Somebody said we used to get lulled to sleep. Was this yours? Was this yours? I watched on your thing.
Maybe.
We used to get lulled to sleep by Johnny Carson and David Letterman and in my opinion, Conan O'Brien. I was just listening to stuff. I do pay a lot of attention to this topic. So, um, you know, I guess it wasn't you now that it's all coming back to me, but now when you lose, why put all that stuff earlier? Because you lose viewers every half hour. There's less viewers. They're going to sleep. But now you're like watching cartoons in the middle of the night. You've got people smoking weed all night long, watching those cartoons and watching TV. Nobody's going to sleep. You've got these devices. You got swipe, 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 swipe. And so now it's a different story. Now you've got all sorts of and so the main point regarding comedy and tragedy, he's talking about how the comedians were making you fall asleep and forgetting the tragedies from the day. And now it seems like you get on there to watch this mudslinging and the tragedy is there. And they're trying to make a joke out of it, in my opinion. And I don't get entertained by any of that. I'm sorry. Um, I don't even remember what John Colbert used to be doing. He was pretending to be a politician, and it seemed like he was a Republican. But then now I don't even remember. I was in Taiwan a lot of that time, so I couldn't even watch late night because you don't get that type of TV there unless you have like the best cable or the best satellite system, and I never did. So I
Fair
watched a
enough.
lot of internet. I watched a lot of internet and transitioned over to YouTube. Wow, so
And
you're going
that's
to make me think of a question.
no. I got the last question. It's about legacy.
Okay.
Who gets remembered? Will the comics Tight Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
Obviously, now I always forget. I painted him, and he's the one that told us the seven words we couldn't say. What's his name? I always can't spit his name out. He is he a comic? No. You know who I'm talking about, right?
I don't recall. No,
He was so I
that
honestly
guy.
just what?
It's that guy. He's
It's
that guy
not
you
that
mentioned.
guy. It's one of the most famous legacies out there, but I can never spit out his name. Who is the comedian that did the seven words that we cannot say? Okay. Yeah, George Carlin.
Oh wow, that's sad.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
always
George
forget.
Carlin.
And I've painted his portrait before, but unfortunately, my brain, there's certain names that I just can't grab unless I have a connection, right? And so it's a problem of mine. But George Carlin has a legacy, right? I think it's
Mhm.
important. to use him as an example because he was definitely a character. He was almost a mudslinger, I would say, pointing out absurdities in people's culture, language. He did a lot of work. He wasn't just a comic. He did a lot of work before he got famous for his 7 words and his challenge uh to I can't even remember what he challenged right now, but he definitely took on a system and called people out. Oh, religion was one of them. He was definitely challenged Christianity, and uh, I don't really think he was a magician or he was a mudslinger as much as a character. That means comedian, and he has a legacy now. You think of the people he was on TV with. You can't remember any of those guys. Characters are remembered. Comics. I think that when you say the word MC, you're right. Some of them are also comedians, and they have to do MC work. But I've seen a lot of MCs out there that they don't know how to do jokes. They know how to start a show. For example, you see them in non-stand-up events where they have to introduce like politicians and they're still emceeing, right? So that's more of a comic job than a comedian job. It definitely is connected to the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have that at every stand-up show, right? So,
You
David, thank you
should.
so much for being my guest. And where can everybody find you online?
Oh, well, I have a website. It's myname.com. And that is David Stig Hansen. You know the singer Sting, Sting? Well, take away that N and you have Stig. There's a famous Stig, the race car driver, Stig of the dump. And you also have one more Stig. Oh, you have Stigmatic. Okay, so my middle name is Stig. My last name is not handsome. Heard that enough. And it's not funny. That's like a comic. That's like a comic line. It's David Hansen, Hansen. Don't use an O. It's an E, Hansen, Sen. So myname.com, davidstighansen.com. YouTube finally got me to choose the @Stig, so you can get that on my YouTube if you want to know about Atlantis and ancient alternative history. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Anyways, and the other part of it is I do paint. So you can go to that website and see my collection of paintings, including the George Carlin portrait that I did. And I do have my resume on there, and I think I might have to re-enter the workforce for another 10 years. So I can speak Chinese, I can speak English. I'm a carpenter, I do electricity, but I'm not a certified uh, contractor. I'm just a handyman. But because of this, I call myself a polymath, and
There you go. There
that's
you
why
go.
I'm not rich. That's why I'm not rich.
Damn, that's what happens to polymath. Well,
That's
David,
that's what
thank you
happens.
so much. Thank you so much. And for everyone else, please like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.